الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي خلق الإنسان في أحسن تقويم وبعث النبيين مبشرين ومنذرين وأنزل معهم الكتاب بالحق ليرشد الناس إلى سبيل الهدى ويخرجوهم من الظلمات إلى النور وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله هو وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. That is, all praise is due to Allah, who has created the human being in the most excellent forms and most excellent molds. He has raised up prophets as bringers of good news and a warning, and he has led man to a guided path. He brought him out of darkness into enlightenment. We witness that none deserves worship except Allah, who's one alone, having no partners, having no associates. And we witness that Muhammad is God's servant and his messenger. We want to welcome you to the Sunday Ta'aleem for Masjid Warathuddin Muhammad. We're March 21st, 2021, and we are quickly moving toward Ramadan. We are a few days away from Ramadan, not days, but a few weeks away from Ramadan, and we are gearing up for Ramadan, inshallah. This is going to be the second Ramadan as we enjoy Sha'aban, the beautiful month of Sha'aban. We enjoy we're going to enjoy another Ramadan, but Ramadan's going to be a little bit different again this year as it was last year, because this is the second year that we're going to be in COVID-19. So we'll have to do a few things different. I'm very excited today because this is Young Adult Sunday. The young adult generation will be the leaders of the future. They're the leaders now, and we're just helping steer the ship. But in the not too distant future, they will be in the positions of leadership. There'll be imams and administrators and other things like that with the responsibility of community. And it's always important to cultivate your next generation and put them in positions of leadership and respect that leadership while you're still alive to aid and assist them. That's how I was trained. That's how Imam Qasim, Imam W. Muhammad Rahimullah alayh, that's how he directed my mentor, Imam Qasim Ahmed, and Imam Qasim Ahmed subsequently directed me to do that. I became the resident imam at 28 years old. So I was a relatively young man as the resident imam. Learned a whole lot those first few years. And now I'm trying to cultivate, or help to cultivate, a new generation of leaders who we can turn it over to. So we have the dynamic young leader, Fatima Ali, here with us today. And she is going to be, we're going to have a dialogue and we're going to have a conversation on Ramadan for young adults and some advice and some suggestions that she may give, because she's experienced Ramadan in many different ways. She's experienced it at home. She left her home and she went to school miles and miles away from home, 20 some miles away from home by car, way up from Houston, Texas to Waterville, Maine. And she spent 4 years away from home during Ramadan. And so she has a number of experiences in terms of how to get the most out of Ramadan in different environmental circumstances. So let's set the conversation today by looking at the verse in the Quran. It's in Surah Baqarah, and you can follow along with me. It's ayah 183, where Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Allah says, oh, you believe, fasting is prescribed for you, upon you, like it was prescribed for those before you, in order that you may develop taqwa. So the ultimate goal, brothers and sisters of Ramadan, is taqwa. That's the ultimate goal. La'allakum tattaqun. Now, tattaqun comes in the eighth form of the Arabic verb, and tattaqun suggests that the taqwa that you're developing is an internal. It's an internal development, not an external development. So that taqwa is something that you develop on the inside, not something that you develop on the outside. And this month of Ramadan is a special month dedicated toward you cultivating taqwa, developing taqwa. And taqwa, we can define taqwa as being regardful of your relationship with Allah. When you look up the word taqwa, taqwa comes from the word waqiyah, waqiyah. And waqiyah means to guard or protect, to guard, preserve, or protect. So taqwa indicates that you're guarding something, you're preserving something. As Allah says, Qul ahlikum wa anfusikum minan nar. Save yourselves and your family from the fire. So taqwa is preservation. So Ramadan is about the preservation of your soul. Ramadan is about the preservation of your consciousness, about the preservation of your good moral behavior, and the renewing of your spirit and reconnecting yourself to Allah and dusting off any rust or bad habits that you experienced over the years. So my first question to you, Fatima, is just about Ramadan in terms of some challenges that you or your other young adults that you know. Well, let's not start with challenges. Let's start with share with us some of the share with us some ways that you think young adults can benefit from Ramadan, especially during keeping in mind that we are to read 1/30th of the Quran every day during Ramadan. Is there something that could be done in terms of learning information, setting goals, anything like that you think?
I think that in the past, one of my favorite ways of looking at Ramadan is kind of like looking at it like a training session for the soul, or like a session of revival for the soul. And when we look at, for example, if you're going through physical training, the first couple days of physical training might be challenging, but once you're used to exercising again, you get into a rhythm. When you get into spiritual training, especially during Ramadan, when you're starting off those first couple of days, it may be challenging, especially since there's that added layer of fasting. But if you're able to find a rhythm, I think that can help. Once you're able to find a rhythm, I think it becomes easier. I think that when we think about Islam as a time that, or when we think about Ramadan as a time that's not just meant to change us for that month, but change us afterwards, that can aid us in figuring out what kind of goals we want to set during Ramadan, or how we want to grow spiritually or otherwise during Ramadan. For example, if Ramadan is the month when the Quran was sent down to the earth. And I think sometimes when we get into the rhythm of fasting and running through our day, whether you're a young professional who has work or whether you're a student studying for finals around Ramadan time, it can be really hard to find that time to fit the Quran in. But it's so essential to find a way to incorporate the Quran into your daily Ramadan practice, so that you're reconnecting your heart with the Quran, since I think that's a big part of Ramadan. If I'd say I'd say before Ramadan, take a minute to step back, look at yourself holistically, your spiritual practice, your physical practices, your mental practices, and say, what out of my habits, what brings me closer to Allah and what's taking me further away from Allah? Where are my shortcomings? Maybe I have a short temper, or maybe I procrastinate a lot, or maybe I'm having a hard time like praying my prayers when they come in. Look at where you think you're falling short and where you think you can improve. Set those goals for Ramadan and use Ramadan as that charging period where you're really working to cultivate yourself in a way where when you get to the other side of Ramadan, you can see that growth and incorporate it into your life. If you know you want to have a deeper relationship with the Quran, try to think about how you can incorporate the Quran into your day, whether it's listening to a 30th of the Quran on your commute to work, listening to lectures about a 30th of the Quran or a certain section of the Quran when you're working or studying, finding a way to incorporate the Quran and narrations on the Quran throughout your day to keep your mind on Allah and to help you grow in that knowledge and in your intention. Definitely look for ways to grow in your actions to please Allah, how you're mindful of Allah, and your spiritual orientation or your heartfelt orientation towards Allah before Ramadan starts, and then set some goals for yourself to grow in that way. So when you get to the end of Ramadan, you can really see that personal growth. Ooh, I think you forgot to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Fatima, for those comments. That takes me to another area that I think is very important. We live at such a time that there's so many distractions, especially for young adults and youth. You know, we don't have any teenagers on the program today, but for young adults and youth, the world is such a distracting thing. You have Instagram, you have Snapchat. The old folks like me, believe it or not, I actually said that we still use Facebook, but I know that and I don't even think Twitter's that popular anymore. But I'm hearing a whole lot about Instagram and these other platforms. And then you have cable television with 400 channels. When I was growing up, you had 3 channels. Now you have cable channels, yes. But there was a time in my life that there was only 3 channels. And television used to go off at night. About 11:30, 12, there was no television. You turn on the television, you get snow. And I remember that as a child. There was no internet. There was no computers. I think the first computer I had was like in 6th or 7th grade, and it was a 386 Tandy. It would probably be in a relic museum right now. It'd be it'd be considered antique if you looked at it now, and it's probably collectible. The first one is probably worth a whole bunch of money right now because it was the first of its kind. So when I was younger, and then even in high school and in college, you know, the internet we had computers, but like instant messaging and chat, all those things were so unusual, and they were so they weren't part of our everyday activity. When I was in college, the only person I ever did like direct messaging to was my wife, and we were courting at the time, and direct messages was so slow and laborious. But now everything is at your fingertip. We walk around with these amazing smartphones that we can watch television on, we can listen to radio, we can watch sports. How in the world does a does a person um, cut out those distractions during Ramadan? And how do you think a parent who has a child that really may not be interested, how do you think a parent could in a constructive way help them get interested? Because when I was young, it was Ramadan and all that stuff better stop. That's just what it was, right? So
Mhm.
so share with us your thoughts.
Ooh, okay. So the questions being, how do we cut out all of the distractions that we have, especially in social media and on television, etc., to really focus in on Allah? And then how do we, whether you're a parent or um, an older sibling, how do you help the youngsters or the people who are struggling to focus in on Ramadan find that focus?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see. That's such a good question. And I'll definitely say that it makes a difference. There was one Ramadan where I was on campus, I didn't have access to cable TV, and I was working during the day. So I was mostly listening to Quranic lectures while working, and then I went home and maybe watched like a baking show with my roommate before praying and going to sleep. But during those times, whether it was Ramadan or when I went on Umrah back in January of 2020, when I've cut out those media distractions, it's made such a huge difference in my ability to focus on my connection with Allah. I think that before doing so, like before going on Umrah, when I hadn't realized how much of a distraction the social media or various media outlets were in my day-to-day life. So I'd heard of like unplugging from social media to focus on God or different things of that nature, but I didn't take it as seriously because I thought, well, it's good to do, but I don't think I need it. So I think that if you underestimate it as a young adult or a teenager, give it a chance, give it a try. You may underestimate how much of a difference unplugging from social media will make in your day to day, especially during Ramadan or during a holy time. But when you do, it lifts some of that weight off of your shoulders. If you work a job in marketing, or if you know that you're going to need access to social media to do what you do every day, think about cultivating curating your social media so you're only seeing halal things during the day. So if you know that there's a site for entertainment that, if there's a page that you follow for entertainment purposes that doesn't necessarily share messages that are most aligned with Ramadan and Allah, try blocking that page for the month of Ramadan and replacing that page with a Quranic Reminders Instagram page. Recently, I've been trying to make sure that I'm taking out more of the pages on my Instagram page that distract me and replacing them with pages for Quranic quotes so that when Ramadan comes around, if I open my Instagram, I'm mostly seeing these Quranic quotes. Try unplugging from social media or other media for about a week before Ramadan to practice, to give yourself a little bit of space so that when you do plug back, so when Ramadan comes around, it doesn't feel like it's as much of a jolt. And if you're going to watch social media or watch things on Netflix, just make sure that they don't contain things that would distract you from your remembrance of Allah. Like one Ramadan, I was watching the Great British Baking Show with my roommate because it was like rated G, it was pretty friendly, they were just baking cakes, and I didn't find that it really distracted me from my remembrance of Allah. And I tried to make sure I wasn't watching things that might have had images that wouldn't have aligned with what I was trying to remember during the month of Ramadan. For people who may be having a hard time with fasting, for those who may not be interested in fasting, for youngsters, and for those who are like, why would I stop watching TV or stop playing video games just because it's Ramadan? Maybe trying to, I'd say for those who are interested in TV and social media, trying to sit down with your kids and explaining to them that you want to make sure that you're taking in all of the good things that are on TV during Ramadan and not the bad things, because during Ramadan we're trying to focus in on all of the good things and all the things that Allah would want us to think about. Same thing with video games, same thing with TV, cable TV, YouTube, just sitting down and saying, since it's Ramadan, we really want to focus in on connecting with God or Allah, and while maybe we don't have to not watch all TV, let's make sure that it's stuff that's family friendly, that we could watch as a family, that little kids could watch, that would be pleasing to Allah. Maybe even introducing them to some programs that they might enjoy that are Islamically focused. I know that when my brother was much younger, we introduced him to a show called Adam's World, and they had an episode about Ramadan, and he got really excited about it. So finding ways to explain refocusing in a positive way, as opposed to saying, like, we need to take away all of these things.
So thank you for those suggestions. I'm sitting outside, and so if y'all hear some noise in the background, somebody's mowing their grass and somebody else is doing their lawn. So I apologize for any background noise. But so thank you so much. But that brings me to a whole nother question. You were watching a baking show during Ramadan. What about for youth and young adults? Sometimes we kind of get focused on the spiritual things, and we forget, for some people, actually not eating and not drinking is a major challenge, right? Somebody like me, I've been fasting since I was 9 years old. And since I was fasting since I was 9 years old, I'm 46 now. I'm about to turn 47. That means that I have been fasting for almost 38 years. I've been fasting. So not eating and drinking is, I never get tempted to break my fast with food. The things that I have to control is, like not arguing, making sure that I maintain my temper, not to be annoying, never to be sarcastic and things like that. But it's not eating. How do we, and I'm not saying it's younger people that face this more, but I do know sometimes younger people, when they're first starting to fast, not eating can be a big challenge. Any suggestions?
Let me see. I'm also sitting by a window, and there's some outside noise too, so I apologize for any background noise. I would say that I've known individuals who've struggled with the physical fast aspect, refraining from food and water. I've known some individuals who've had trouble with eating disorders, so their relationship with food is complicated, and figuring out how to fast in a healthy way for them is complicated. I've known individuals who have taken prescription medications, or who take prescription medications so they can't fast, but they miss the fasting aspect. And there was one Ramadan where I was taking I think I was taking a prescription where I had to drink water every day, and that I wasn't able to fast that Ramadan, and that was very disappointing to me. But I would say that remembering what helped me that Ramadan, and I think what people would benefit from is remembering that fasting is only one aspect, like the physical fast is only one aspect of Ramadan. And the Prophet said that if you're only refraining from food and you're ignoring the mental and spiritual aspects of Ramadan, then you might as well not fast at all. So there's still a mental and spiritual aspect of Ramadan that we can all hone into. The mental aspect of Ramadan would be reflecting on Allah during the day, making your intentions to please Allah, focusing your thoughts on that which would be pleasing to Allah, and taking your thoughts away from, and fasting from thoughts that see Allah in a negative light, or see the world in a negative light, or thoughts that would take you further away from Allah. So having that, creating that space where you're being mindful of Allah and where you're reflecting on Allah on a daily basis, that's one mental aspect of fasting. A spiritual aspect of fasting would be orienting your heart towards all that's pleasing towards Allah, and letting go of everything in your heart that's not pleasing to Allah. Like, we want to love what Allah loves, inshallah, or we want to love what Allah loves for us. So orienting your heart to love what Allah wants and loves for you, and fasting from everything in your heart that wouldn't be pleasing towards Allah, that's another aspect of fasting. Additionally, reconnecting with the Quran is so powerful during Ramadan. So if you struggle with fasting or you're unable to fast, reconnecting to the Quran can breathe so much life into your Ramadan. The one Ramadan where I couldn't fast, I was really looking for a way to still feel connected to Ramadan and Allah, and I spent the entire month diving deep into the Quran in a way that I hadn't before, and I just felt much more intimately connected with the Quran than I had before, and that's something that I've carried since that Ramadan. So don't underestimate reconnecting with the Quran during Ramadan. Don't underestimate making dua during Ramadan, praying during Ramadan. If you struggle with the physical aspect of the fast, don't underestimate the mental and spiritual aspects. Additionally, even if you're someone who can't fast all day from food, you may be able to at least be more mindful about what you're putting in your body. Since, Allah gave us our bodies and it's our responsibility to take care of them, being mindful that you're eating healthy foods during Ramadan and taking care of what Allah's given you as a part of acknowledging the blessings that Allah's given you and making intentional choices about taking care of what Allah's given you. Oh, you're muted again.
I guess I'm fasting from unmuting my microphone. I'm getting ready for Ramadan. Zachariah was told to fast from speaking for 3 days as a sign in the Quran. So there's different kinds of fasting too, But as we get ready to conclude, I want to thank you. There's something you brought up today that, although I am a nutrition professional, I'm a professor of nutrition, and I do a seminar every year called Nutrition During Ramadan. I've never dealt with eating disorders. I've never dealt with the whole idea of eating disorders in Ramadan. As a matter of fact, I haven't even researched it. So your comments today have definitely brought my perspective, and I realize now that I need to do some research on eating disorders during Ramadan and perhaps host a whole symposium on just eating disorders in the Muslim community. How much is it acknowledged that eating disorders exist, and what kind of resources are available to help Muslims with eating disorders? We know in some instances, the inappropriate correlation of faith with mental health disorders and the stigmatizing that happens with people with mental health disorders, where they're sometimes made to feel that their faith is inadequate in some way because they have a mental health disorder. We know that that was a problem in certain Muslim communities for a long time, and we know that still to the day, you know, people conflating faith, lack of faith, with having emotional health disorders like depression, uh, and how people with mental health is stigmatized, how that can be uh, uh, a condition that discourages people from seeking help. There's a whole stigma and shame and hidden. The whole stigma around eating disorders is one that elicits a lot of feelings of shame and guilt. And people with eating disorders that aren't dealing with faith hide it. So it may be, that's an area that I'm gonna have to research, and offer some guidance on, inshallah. Come up, talk with the different scholars that we have in the community, and come up with some guidance that we can offer Muslims who have eating disorders, and what to do during Ramadan. Intuitively, I know if they have an eating disorder like anorexia, intuitively they wouldn't be required to fast because of that eating disorder. It wouldn't. Fasting would actually exacerbate that eating disorder and make that eating disorder worse. Because I understand the characteristics of anorexia, and I understand that it's a psychiatric condition. And it's a diagnosable psychiatric condition. But other disorders like bulimia and eating disorder, not otherwise specified, and other things like that, I think that that's an area that we have to do some research on to one, raise awareness of its existence in the Muslim community, and two, begin to provide some resources that can help those individuals. So we want to thank you for joining us on Young Adult Sunday. Inshallah, we will meet again a month from now for Young Adult Sunday. We will be in the middle of Ramadan, inshallah, and
Inshallah.
we'll be benefiting from the blessings of Ramadan. And perhaps next month we can have a panel to discuss on their experiences this Ramadan and how it's different this year with partially reopened masjids than completely closed down masjid. So thank you so much for joining us, Fatima. May Allah continue to bless you. And for all those who were listening, may Allah bless you and guide you. May He keep you and your family safe. And thank you for joining us at Masjid Wadathiri Muhammad for Young Adult Sunday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. I thank you so much for coming today. I'm going to run us through the announcements really quick. Here are our community announcements. The Winter Storm Uri Relief Fund can be accessed through the links on screen. If you're in need of assistance or if you're able to give financially, you can access through here. And we pray that Allah's mercy envelops all of you and your loved ones during this time as we work as a community to move forward. In-person Jummah is now available. It's a phased reopening. You must register online. The khutbah times are available on screen. You can register at tanyel.com/MCC-Jummah. You can also register for Jummah at Masjid Warithuddin Muhammad. The link previously was for Mercy Community Center. The link for WDM is on screen now. And the times are also available. To sponsor a catered iftar for this upcoming Ramadan, go to tanyel.com/WDM iftar. We will be having an outdoor/drive-through iftar service at Masjid WDM during this time. Your zakat and donations are needed. You can donate through the website, masjidwdmuhammad.com. You can donate through Zelle, PayPal, or Cash App at the links displayed on screen. Your zakat and donations are also needed at Mercy Community Center. To make a donation to support our community during this time, go to www.mercycc.org/donation. Our new Muslim orientation class meets every Sunday at 3 p.m. It's led by Imam Elijah Salahuddin. To join, go to tinyc.cc/new Muslim class or email elijah@masjidwdmuhammad.com. Our virtual khutbah is every Friday at 1:30 p.m. They're now 15 minutes long. You can access them via the live streams on Facebook or on YouTube on the Masjid WDM page or the Mercy Community Center page. The Ta'aleem public address is also every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. You can access those on the Facebook or YouTube pages for Masjid WDM or Mercy Community Center. Our sisters' Chalaqah is every second and fourth Saturday from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. It's women only. To gain access, email Salima Cogbill @gmail.com. Our brothers meeting is every third Saturday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. CST. It's brothers only. To access, go to tinyurl.com/WDMbrothers. If you'd like to make a donation for our MWDM 10th anniversary project, the fundraising donor wall, to have one of your names or the name of your loved ones included on this wall, follow the link on screen and to make your donation. Al Farouk Media Productions has a wide collection of Islamic publications and artifacts. If you're interested in accessing any of those publications, artifacts, or learning materials, contact Imam Farouk with information on screen. Thank you so much for coming today, and we appreciate all of you. Have a blessed Sunday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.